baby, baby, boo. Hey, bundle baby, we should make a baby. Just kidding. You want one of those? You will. I made about, I don't know, 6 to 8 new themes of you. Existing pictures. I don't have any collages of you where I take the pictures and size them up and then take a picture of that and have that as a picture. And then I'll use it in the theme, and then, you know, sometimes I'll take a picture of the whole theme and then I just have that and I can size it up, you know. So it's just, instead of the individual squares. And like I said, I email it because I don't update shit. So, because if I was to lose shit and want to recover it, it would be a different size and a different configuration. The size I can just resize, but the configuration, I don't know if there's a way to get it back to the original, you know, just grid, you know, so it's next to each other, you know. You know, technology. I know how this game works, you know, that fag shit. Meaning fail, stupid, you know, whatever. And like I said, that's why I saved that shit 6 ways till Sunday, because it's kind of a pain in the ass to make, you know, sizing up the head. You know, you got to kind of retweak it like 5 fucking times, you know. The head's a little bit too big. Oh, the neck's a little bit too long. You know, this, that. And like I said, you know, I mean, and it's crude, you know, like if I kind of want to elongate, you know, and thin up the front panty or whatever, you know, I'll kind of just beep, beep, and then take a picture of that. But bear in mind, that's going to make that bigger and the top smaller, you know, so you only have so much to work with. And it looks pretty good, actually, you know. I mean, you can tell it's a picture of a picture. It's a little grainy. You can see the line. But when you first look at it, when your eyes see it, you know, it looks real. Some of them are a little bit more grainy than others. Some of them are like, damn, you know. But anyway. So I made some new themes of you. And I made some new themes of Little Miss Can Eat a Potato Whole, sideways. Made some actual collages, you know, sized that up, you know, and went through the elaborate process, you know. But, because you won't find what I'm looking, you know, I've got my system, you know what I mean? So, like I said, I might use something, a picture or a quick video, you know, that I might find on the internet, but pretty much that shit's garbage, you know. Humans don't really know how to be sexy. They just sort of go through the motions like some sort of, you know, it just is what it is. Like some sort of, you know, dumb shit. That's discovered something for the first time and doesn't really know what to do with it, or how to move, or how to act, or how to be. So, and it's pretty established, you know. Humans are pretty established just pretty much in everything they do. So it's you know, we all kind of follow, what would you call it, templates and whatnot, just how we react. I mean, there's different variations. I don't want to get into that, but it really and truly is, you know what I mean? Because we only have so many options. So you might get a person that has, you know, this different combination of shit or that different combination of shit, you know, but there's really not a whole lot of truly unique individuals. Really not. We all kind of come off as unique, you know, because we have, like I said, there's a whole bunch of different things that, you know, come with your ass. You know, how you think and just your personality and all that shit. But really, it's just different variations. You know, we only have so many options. But anyway, and like that, what is it? That red countertop dude who's a cashier in the hood. I think that's legit. I don't think it's AI. Just all the dudes with the bad attitude and how they throw the shit across the counter or put it right on the edge. They wad up all their ones, and, you know, and the guys who count it out, but they're like they're dealing out decks of cards. you know what I mean? It seems to be legit, you know, but just, and I noticed that, you know, in the world, and of course there's, you know, these videos, I've mentioned it before, you know, how pretty much everybody's roughly about 12 years old, you know, and like how they internalize the world, but then they quote unquote act like adults because we have to hold down jobs and communicate with people and pay the bills. So we kind of have this like facade, this shell that we present to the world, but underneath it all, pretty much everybody's 12. And it's like they're 12 when they're 12, and they continue growing, you know, biologically, physiologically, whatever, but their mentality kind of like at their core stays 12. And like I said, there's the outside shit that matures, and then there is, like I said, in rare occasions, and I've talked about like the different levels. If you're in the top level, most people have their feet like in the lower level, but they reside in the middle. But then there's people up at the top, but that's not a good place to be, because then you've lost all connection with the bottom level. And this sounds like gibberish, and I'm not going to bother trying to explain this. I could, but I don't feel like it. It's just what I use to kind of, you know, put people in categories. Like I said, you know, the stuff, you know, we all come from a vending machine. You know, it's like these people are A1, these people are A2, so these people are all on the same row. You know, they're all like the same type of candy. They just come in, like I said, different combinations, and you know, it's shit like that. And this is just kind of how I use to, you know, judge my fellow man and woman, because we all do it. How you internalize it and send it back out into the world is what determines your character. But, and you're damn right, you know what I mean? It helps me, you know, and I'm wicked scary at it. You know, I don't know if it's just over the years of observing. I kind of think I don't know if it's something that's just developed, and I do mean this humbly under the eyes of God and the devil, because they're both always watching. It's almost like I have a sixth sense, you know. I mean, I can just look at a fucking person, you know, and never mind that everything paints a picture, you know, from your shoes to your hairstyle to how you're sitting. You know, are you crouched over with your knees on your elbows looking at your phone? These days, that's a big thing. Pretty much everybody's on their phone. I'm not. I'm the only one, you know, just observing. Shit, you know, but that's me. So, anyway, yeah, those people, you know, they lose touch, like, you know, these hotshot booger snots, you know, who are like scientists and stuff, you know, and their wives cheating on them, and their kids, you know, don't respect them, and he thinks he's trying. He's like, he's got the house, he takes them on vacations, you know, every year, like elaborate ones, you know. Maybe he'll include, if he has the ability to include the simple shit and understand it, that that's an integral part of being a good husband and father, then he's probably not going to be stuck up there in the top. He's going to at least have some be dipping down into the middle. So most likely all these vacations are like these elaborate ones. So his wife and kids, you know, at first they're like cool, and then they're like whatever, you know. You know, maybe they have the ability to suggest, you know, hey, we just want to go fishing. You know, we just want to take like a extended weekend, you know, and fucking do something, you know. But because he's so high caliber, he doesn't recognize that. So he's always going above and beyond the best, you know, latest and greatest, nothing but the best, highest quality, everything, you know. And sometimes they just, you know what I mean? You got to be holistic with your approach, you know. So, and unfortunately, a lot of these guys who actually literally are adults, they're not 12-year-olds. They're actually like functioning, you know, their age. They were 25 when they were 25. They're 45 when they're 45, you know, and there's some hotshot scientist or whatever. You know, that's not actually a good thing. You know, you want to be that immature motherfucker, you know, but maybe a little bit more mature, you know. Maybe you've managed to have the maturity level of a 16-year-old, which is pretty damn good. You know, I mean, like back in the 1800s, you know, 16-year-olds were like, you know, full-time, you know, members of society. You know, they still had some growing to do, and the brain doesn't stop developing until 25. I'm assuming that's for males and females. But anyway, you know, it's like, you're an able-bodied dude. You know, get your ass on this deck and start throwing these bags of grain. You know, yeah, you go to school during the day, you know, but after work, you know, after school, you know, you give 4 or 5, maybe even 6 hours. You know, you was a man. Now, I don't know what, you know, age, you know, like the Civil War and all that stuff, you know, you could be drafted or they would accept you, but, you know, because that's, you know, a thing, you know. 18, you can go to war and buy cigarettes. Can't drink till you're 21. Can't drive till you're 16. You know, we have these limits, you know, that people have decided is kind of the right age where people are ready to do that. And I think I tend to agree. Some people might be like, okay, so you're old enough to smoke and go to war, but you're not old enough to drink? I'm sorry, I agree with that. Drinking is not smoking. It's different. You smoke a bunch of cigarettes, you don't change into a different fucking person. So, you know, same thing with driving, you know. Plus, I mean, some people are short and shit. You gotta be able to reach the pedals, for crying out loud. I started driving, you know, my uncle, not the one that I was related to, but, you know, he'd have me driving, and I didn't have to sit on anything, but we pushed the seat all the way forward, and we'd have to put coats and shit behind me so I could reach the pedals. And he had a big old jacked up truck. He was even more jacked up than mine. It was an automatic, but he also had like a little Datsun or something. It was like a 5-speed. You know, whatever. I was like in 5th grade, you know, I remember. He's explaining to me, you know, we're on a hill. He's like, okay, clutch in, brake. Take your foot off brake, put it on the gas, give a little bit of gas, let the clutch out till it starts to slip, and then give it a little bit more gas. Slow down on the slip, then give it a little bit more gas. It's going to be a little bit rough at first. These aren't his exact words, I'm paraphrasing, but, you know, and then, you know, go forward. And, you know, it used to be a thing, you know, the start in first gear, driving a manual transmission on a hill. It was something you had to learn, you know, and you encountered a few, and then you know, if you're smart, you'd go find a hill where there wasn't anybody behind you. You know, you're not out on the road, you know, blah, blah, blah. You just go find a hill and do it 10 times in a row, and okay, that's out of the way. We know how to, you know, start, you know, and then there's different vehicles and shit like that, but you get the concept of gas first, then clutch, slip it, you know, let up a bit, a little bit more gas, you know, if you do it too slow, you're going to roll backwards. You do it too fast, you're going to kill it, you know, and, you know, just blah, blah, blah. But that's a skill that people do not have anymore, and they really don't need to. But, and in a big truck, what you do, clutches are different. Number one, the gears aren't synchronized, you know, so you have to match engine speed with transmission speed. So if you're downshifting, you have to rev up. The synchronizers will just wear out, you know, in a matter of fucking months anyway. I suppose that's why they do it. And they're big, heavy-duty transmissions, and you're pulling a lot of weight, so it's just less intricate shit in there that's moving around, you know. But they're synchronized in a car, but they're not in a truck. But the clutches are different, too. They're really tight. They have a long, you know, travel. There's the clutch brake if you need to, like, slow it down to get it in gear. It's just spinning, so you got to push it all the way in, and then it'll pop into gear. I don't really understand. If you want to, you can look that up on YouTube if you want to, but I know that's what that is. It, like, because they're not synchronized, it's like you need to boom, but if you want to keep that clutch about halfway in, you know, if you're at the stoplight, and then it lets out all the way up to the top. But if you're on a hill, you don't do the gas slip thing. You let it out till it starts to grab, you hear the engine lug, then you push it back in about an inch, and then even with all that weight in a big truck, tractor trailer, not necessarily in, you know, like a diesel pickup, but in a tractor trailer, the way that they're designed and geared and whatnot, you give it no gas until it starts to brr, and then depending on how heavy it is and how steep or how steep the hill is, then you give it a little, you know. But it's a different, you know what I mean? It's not gas first then clutch. It's actually backwards. It's clutch till it, and then gas, but only a little, not a lot, you know. And then maybe you're in low or first, and then you're not moving very fast, so you got to rev the engine up as fast as you can, because you got to grab that gear quick, you know. And it just takes practice, you know, because otherwise you lose it. And now you're now you're in second gear, and it's like fuck, you know. And sometimes it actually takes, at least back when, you know, trucks were all manuals, there was some technique to it, you know what I mean? You had to, like I said, you don't, as soon as you take it out of gear, you're downshifting, so you wind that bitch up to, you know, 2,500 RPM, and then boom, grab that next gear, and then repeat the process until you get through third gear, fourth gear, and now your momentum's gone, you know. And that's true. It doesn't matter if it's like a big truck or just an old school, big old, you know, dump truck or something. You know, like I said, I'm wanting to buy that Deuce and a half, you know. I've never driven one, but I'm assuming they probably drive the same way, you know what I mean? So just generally driving them, you know, they're kind of an old clunkety thing, but sometimes you really gotta fucking drive that bitch like you're pissed off, you know what I mean? Otherwise that engine isn't gonna have the oomph, you know, because it's the engine and the clutch and the transmission that's moving all of that. The tires, the people, anything that's in the bed, you know. So it's those three components. And then your weak points, you know, if you want to get hard on shit and be jerky and poppy, you know, then you've got your drive line, which is probably going to be the main thing that's going to fail if you fuck up. And then, you know, your differential and your actual axle, you know, that runs through there, you know, that's connected to the tires and so on and so forth. So, and, you know, it's all this mechanical thing, right? So you're in there just, you know, throwing gears and, you know, stepping on the gas and working the clutch and whatnot, and then all of a sudden you hear this pop, you know, and you broke your axle or whatever, and now you're fucked. So so you gotta think it in those terms, you know. Your U-joints on your axles, you know, that's what's gonna break. So they're not actually U-joints shaped like a U, they're shaped like an X. But it's kind of amazing, these little parts that withstand all this weight and all this pressure, you know what I mean? So, but anyway, so I didn't do any more themes of you, Katie Boo. You know what I am gonna do though? I did save a picture of you, the one where you were with Fatty McFatfuck, and you kind of had your head back and tilted and leaning. I saved that. One of the things we're gonna do sexually, you know, because I'm gonna be way more sexually enthusiastic and excited, because that's, guys are just naturally like way hornier than chicks. So you, as a good Christian girl, I'm not gonna, you know, ask you to do anything stupid shit, but I do expect it from you, you know. And it's gonna be just pure lust, you know, the rubbing the dick on your face and the panty and the thong and the stuff, and even just blowjobs proper, you know, just popping the head of my dick out your mouth there with your part of mouth there. But one of the things, you know, I'm gonna do, you know, is have you on your knees, kind of leaning back, and I'm just gonna teabag you, you know, so eyes open and closed, you know, and I'm just, you know, so my dick will be hard, you know, so it'll be waving around, you know, and shit, and I'm just gonna drag my balls, you know, my scrotum sack, you know, all over your face. And we'll do that, you know, before we, you know, do something. Either we might be having actual sex, you know, where I'm gonna, you know, penetrate you. It might be just a favor, you know, before, you know, you straddle me and start working them hips. So yeah, like I said, you got to be about it. You got to be enthusiastic about it. Otherwise, I'm not interested. And I think you could be. I think you are. Number one, because of the way I present it. I don't present it in like a stupid, you know, I present it in a way that kind of puts you in control, even though that's kind of like the submissive position. You're on your knees and I'm, you know, rubbing my balls on your face, you know. a lot of chicks might be like, and don't worry, you know, shaven, clean, and all that stuff, you know, none of that nasty, stupid shit. But, you know, a lot of chicks might be like, no, you know, but it's still, even though you're in this quote-unquote submissive role, you know, and your demeanor, you know, give me a look, give me a giggle, you know, what you do with your hands, you know, just sort of have them by your side, or do you have them up, you know, grabbing the back of my thighs, you know, or my hips, so you're more like engaged. You're not just like, oh, dick me, you know, you're like, oh yeah, dick me, motherfucker, you know. Who's a horny boy, you know, just whatever. So, you know, it's like, even though you're quote-unquote the submissive one, you're kind of not, you know, you're kind of running the show. So it's how you present that shit, you know, and just whatever. And it's not, you know, like I said, I'm different, you know what I mean? I don't want you to spit on my dick. I don't want you to you know, shove my dick down your throat till your eyes start to water and snot bubbles come bubbling out your nose. That's everybody else. That's not me. Them fucking fake gates. I just don't understand it, you know. Not interested in the butthole at all. That's, you know, fake shit. And not to besmirch the homosexuals, they get a pass, poor bastards, you know. That's just how they're wired. But, you know, butt cheek, butt crack, and that crease where ass meets thigh. Oh yeah. That's what butt stuff means on my planet. Here on Earth, the phrase butt stuff actually means butthole stuff. So, ass cheeks might make a brief presentation and then they just go away. So, but anyway, I guess that's all I got to say, baby. Hey. My pad is done when I get home. And now I need to, sooner rather than later, you know, need to extend that. Because like I said, when it's snowing or wet, even though it's better dirt out there, I don't know why, it's not as sandy. You know, this needs to happen. So, otherwise I'll have to park it at my dad's house and, you know, have him give me a ride to my house. So, anyway, 22 minutes in, just sort of yippity yappy yammerings away. Yeah, Bundle Baby. Ooh, some new stuff. The Potato Eater, just totally made some new shit with her. That's good stuff. Ooh. So, she is now on the list. I am now masturbating to the, you know, big titty Little Miss Canita Potato Hole Sideways, who is a new mom. So, I think she crapped out that kid probably, what, maybe a year ago? So, her husband's probably such a pud. If he has stuck his dick between them boobies at all, he probably did it all stupid and shit. Because he doesn't appreciate it, you know what I mean? Like, he's the type of dumb fuck who would fuck her titties and then jack off and ejaculate on her chest. Like, not even her tits, but like that spot between her boobs and her face, you know what I mean? That's earth shit. I don't understand that. Keep your hands off your fucking dick. Keep your dick between them fucking awesome titties. And you blow your load between them fucking tits. Whether you're the one who's doing the work or she's the one who's doing the work. Fucking idiots. So, might not want to tell him. He'll probably be all jealous and shit. That motherfucker masturbating to my wife. I fucked that bitch, yo. I gotta kick your ass. Dumb pud. Honestly. She could do so much better. So I hope that doesn't make you feel too weird, you know. But yeah, ooh. So, Little Miss Molotov Cocktail, she's cute, you know, but she's kind of pudgy around the tummy area, you know. I won't be making any collages of her doing any masturbating of her. So, yeah, she's cute. She got the cute little accent, you know. It's just the right amount, too. It's not too thick and heavy where it's annoying, you know. And it's like, you know, she's cultured. She brings something, you know. Like I said, you know, her childhood probably involved, you know, goats, chickens, and, you know, 7 siblings all sleeping in the same room, in the same bed, you know, and yes, walk to school, you know, 5 miles every day. But she's got character. Now she's here in the US of A, and she appreciates it. But, and the dunce. I think the dunce is pretty cute. Yeah. Anyway, check out, I put it in the funny shit folder. Amen dropped the mic, weak people make hard times, and the equals bad, and AI. I've only watched like the first like minute about fucking, if you get AI calls, you know how they're designed, you can like fuck with them. So I did that one time, as a long time ago. This motherfucker, you know, called me. He's like, I'm for Microsoft, you to open your computer. And I was like, you know, and I drug him out for like fucking at least 30 minutes, and he was getting mad. I was like, how do I open the thing? You know, you just use your finger and open it up. And of course, I'm not going to like turn it on to make that connection or anything, because he's got that tech going on. And this is back then. Who knows what we got now? But yeah, case in point, AI. Whoo, yeah. We just grabbed 2 or 3 fucking gears, yo. No, not the next gear. We just added gears. We reconfigured the whole fucking system. Yeah, AI. Yeah, technology. Here's the keys to everything. Yeah, let's do it. Money, 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 money. Yeah. You mean we can get rid of people? And good old Elon Musk, you know what I mean? I mean, generally, I'm kind of for him, you know what I mean? But, you know, nobody will have to have jobs. Machines will do everything. Everything will cost $1. Yeah, well, during that transition phase, a lot of people are going to lose it all, you know what I mean? And, you know, me, I have a safety net, and I don't have any skin in the game, but there's a lot of people who don't have a safety net, and they have a wife and kids, so, yeah. Not embracing the AI revolution like, oh, you fucking, as my Peach Best Cool Breeze says, all these small dick motherfuckers jacking off to the concept of, you know, firing all of their people. You know, and they'll just pocket all that cash, you know, and do the stock market thing, and, you know, double it up, get your money having sex with other people's money, you know, birthing out new money just as fast as you can, you know. You invest $1, that's one thing. You invest $100,000, that's another. So, fucking pieces of shit. And in the meantime, groceries and all that shit are all going up because of them. You know, inflation, that exists because of politicians printing money. You know, and you got that people like Ilmar, you know, religion says it's good to make things go boom, boom, boom and into people, especially those evil, we are religion, you know, whitey. So yeah, we're the problem. It's been proven. Got a track record and everything. Shit. But you know, with these fake, you know, wine companies and shit, they're just pure fucking greed, pure fucking evil. Fuck them all. At every level. You know, you got your big dogs, you know, up there in Washington, and then you got your local, you know, dingbat, you know, Andy Mayberry mayor, you know, who's the richest person in the county, who doesn't even live in that county. You know, he's making, you know, $200,000 a year, you know, or whatever, working 8-hour days, 5 days a week, you know, just fucking finding shit to do, you know. So let's make it a law that you can't walk on the grass, you know, more than 10 feet from the sidewalk, you know. fucking shit. You know, a lot of these people, I swear. But anyway, now I'm even more into it, so go check that out. Oh, but that one guy, and then finally he was getting mad. I'm like, hey. I said, there's a special place in hell waiting for you, you piece of shit. And hung up on him. So anyway, do not redeem. Do not redeem. You are a stupid, stupid person. And I have no sympathy for him. You know? No, I don't care. I don't care that there's no jobs, you know, in your country. You do you. You don't fuck over other people, you know, to do what you need to do. You just don't, motherfucker. Stop fucking having kids. Do what you need to do, but you do not. It is not an option. It is not on the table. You do not fuck over other people, you know, to get by, to get yours. I gotta do what I gotta do. Fuck you. Good luck. You do not fuck over other people. Period. Anyway. I guess that's all I gotta say. So, one last time, tell your friend, Little Miss Canita Potato Hole Sideways, congratulations. Ooh, I mean, I knew I was probably eventually gonna get around to it, but ooh, she's active, you know. She's part of my, whatever. So. Like I said, send her to pick me up. Oh, shit. My dick will be like, it won't know what to do, you know. We're in the car with her? So are we, you know, no, probably not.